So we have a video for you today. You'll see on the video on the bottom it says preview only. It's because I don't want to pay for it. So it's there, and we'll watch that for a few minutes. Give me a full screen.
2,000 years ago, Jesus told us that we are a city on a hill and the light of the world. Now, more than ever, the world needs the church to be a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope, a place to belong. All around us, neighbors, family, friends are desperately searching for a refuge in the wilderness, for an anchor in the storm, for a place to belong. It's time to show them who the church really is. Welcome them in. Welcome them back. Because it's who we are. It's who we were always meant to be. Let's remind the world that they matter to God. No matter what they've been through, no matter how far they feel from faith. No conditions, no judgment, just love. And that this is truly a place to belong.
Of who we are and how much needed we are. And if you look around and read the paper, get depressed like I do when I read the paper. I usually get depressed. And you can see this world is not getting any better. And we, the church, are needed all the more now than ever before. And what Jesus did 2,000 years ago is needed all the more now than ever before. But sometimes I don't think we really know who we are. Sometimes I think we just kind of just go to church and we go about our life and we don't really know how important we are to people in this world and to people around us. Sometimes we get so caught up on our own problems and our own desires and things that we forget that we have been chosen by God. And He's given us, not only chose us, but He's given us a commission. He's given us a job to do. And we forget that. We just go about our lives and start complaining about things, and we forgot that Jesus said, look, I've come and I've done all of this for you. Now I want you to go and make disciples. Go means to get off and make disciples. Make means to make something. Manufacture something means to work at it. They don't just happen. And disciples means you're trying to get people to follow Jesus, not just say, yeah, I believe in Him. But people who are willing to change their lives for Him. That's what we are trying to do. And that's not just because we're trying to do it because we want to be cool and we want to be big. It's because this is what they need. This is what they need. Man, this world today, this week was just, it was an amazing week for me because first of all, I started the week off with a stomach bug. So that, for 24 hours, that was pretty bad. Thank you, Owie, for sharing that with me. And but I mean, we read about the 8 people that died in the nursing home in Florida because they didn't have air conditioning. You're going to still hear a lot about that in the coming weeks because somebody's going to get blamed for that because that just shouldn't have happened. We hear about people being shot in a high school in Washington, and we heard, the newspaper this week, a 26-year-old guy tried to rape a 63-year-old woman in her apartment in Kingston, and it just goes on and on and on. This world is in trouble. It's really, really in trouble, and the world really needs us. What we have to give to it. What do we have to give to it? Can you think of anything? I came up with 5 things that we have that they really, really need. 5 things. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get through them all, but I want to share you these 5 things. So if you're taking notes, number 1, this is a word that you probably don't even know the meaning of. Or if you do, you think you know the meaning of it, you probably have the wrong meaning of it. The first thing that we have to give to the world is holiness. And we sang about that a lot today. Holiness is not a way that you act. Holiness is not a superiority. Holiness is not being touched or having oil, someone putting oil on you or something. It's none of that. Holiness is found in 1 Corinthians. I'm going to look it up for you. 1 Corinthians 6. Chapter 6, verses 9 to 11. Holiness is this. It says, Paul writes that thieves or covetous people or drunkards or revilers or swindlers, none of these things shall inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you, but you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's what holiness is. It's coming before Jesus and being washed clean. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. There are so many people that I have talked to that said, oh, I could never go to church because the roof would cave in if I ever walked into the place. Then you don't understand holiness, because it has nothing to do with what you've done. It has everything to do with what Jesus did and you accepting what he did for your life and becoming holy. I had a relative passed away a few years ago. And fortunately for him, Linda was at his bedside. When I look over this list of things that Paul said that some of you were, this relative was a fornicator, he was an adulterer, he was a thief, he was a coveter, he was a drunkard, he was a swindler. But on his deathbed, he asked Jesus to come in his heart. And he repented. And on his deathbed, he became holy. He became sanctified. And that's what Paul writes later on, that God has called us a holy priesthood. We offer holiness to people who have really messed up their lives or they've done some really bad things. We offer something to people to bring them back to God simply because of what God has done. Hebrews 4:16, it says, draw near with confidence to the throne of grace because of what Jesus has done. Not because you deserve to be there, because you've been redeemed. Colossians 3, it says that you have died and God has made you new. You are a new creature. You have died and God's made you new. That's what holiness is. It's acceptance by God for you. What it's not, and this is the important part, because so many of us get it confused, it's not a set of rules that you follow. It's not an appearance that we have to put on. I had one time years and years ago, I had some leaders in church ask me to go to ask a woman to not dress that way anymore because it wasn't appropriate for church. Jesus doesn't care about how you dress. Doesn't mention about being modest, but it doesn't care how sloppy your clothes are. And you young gals, I will fool around and tell you that I'm going to loan you some money to buy a new pair of jeans when they have holes in them. But it's just because it's a humor. It's not because I don't think you need a new pair of jeans. Linda's the only one who thought that was funny. It's not certain actions to promote your goodness or your righteousness. Holiness doesn't mean that we can't hang out with sinners. Jesus hung out with the sinners. That's what really got the Pharisees ticked off. Look at him. He's hanging out with the sinners. That's not what holiness tells us to do. Holiness doesn't go around telling people they're sinners. It doesn't go around judging people. That's what religion does. We talked last week about how sometimes we get we get certain things and ideas in our head, like about swearing, and we become so about that we forget what's really important. And the Bible doesn't even say that swearing is sin. It just says to avoid the use of swearing, the use of rough language. And like I said last week, I'm not promoting you to start swearing. I'm just trying to tell you, concentrate on the things that are important. And that is reaching people. I know some Christian churches. Linda and I, one of our favorite shows years ago, was Bounty Hunter. I don't know if anybody ever watched Bounty Hunter. And the thing we really liked about it is that once he got a hold of this crook or this prisoner, he would start telling them about Jesus and how they got to come to God. But sometimes he would tell them in the language that prisoner would use. But sometimes that's the only language those people know. And he was reaching them for Christ. And I said, good for him. Good for him. I'm not promoting swearing. I'm just telling you that we have to accept people just as they are. Another person told me that if I came to church, everybody would hate me because I'm not a likable person. I said, church isn't about having people like you. It's about accepting Christ into your life and repenting before him. Any other type of thinking undermines the work that Jesus did on the cross. He did it all. We don't have to add to it. We don't have to add to that at all. Anytime that we feel that there's a certain type of sin that's unforgivable, and I don't mean the one that's mentioned in Hebrews. It says blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, which I'm not exactly sure what that means even. But there's other sins. And when Linda and I, when we went to Halifax and we saw firsthand the monument and the ordeal that happened when two boats collided together because they wouldn't get out of each other's way, and 2,000 school children were immediately blinded by the blast. Permanently. They're like, look at the fire in the bay, and then boom, and 2,000 immediately blinded in the bay. And then the story was told to us how the two captains signaled to each other with lights, hey, get out of the way. And the other would say, hey, you get out of the way. Hey, you get out of the way. I thought to myself, that's unforgivable. That's just unforgivable. Like, if he was alive, bring him over here. I'll start cutting toes off one at a time. I laughed when Frank said, you bump one more time, I'll hit you in the back of the head with a ball. We think these things. This is what goes through our head. But the fact of the matter is, there is nothing that's unforgivable. Holiness is what we offer because of what Jesus did. So we need to stop the judging. We need to drop the appearance. We need to start accepting folks for the way they are. And I'm just going to close with a testimony about that because I have there's more of this stuff, and maybe I'll share it next week. But because of the acceptance and the love that we have to offer people, and all these other things that I'm going to share, I'm going to talk about truth and love and so forth. But so I'm down at the boat club, and basically the club is 99% men, as Frank said. Men have problems, and a lot of the men down there are older men. So that means that the boat club is full of grumpy old men. And I'm going to give you, just a little bit of a, maybe feel sorry a little bit for them. A lot of us are in pain most of the time. A lot of us see things going on around us that we don't like the change in this world. We don't like where it's headed. We don't like the fact that we lay down our lives in wars and so forth, and people are not honoring the national anthem anymore. There's a lot of things we don't like, and like I said, then we look in the mirror and we see that we've become unattractive. I thought that was kind of funny. And I go to get my hair cut, and she puts me in front of the mirror, and I say, could we turn a chair around so I don't have to see myself? She thinks that's funny and doesn't do it. There's so many things that are going on that are negative in our lives, and so it's so easy to become grumpy. So I try to go out of my way and encourage some of the people And so, anyway, one guy came up to me this last week. He goes, I've had it with this place. He does so much work down there. He goes, I've had it. I'm quitting. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go next door and pay $1,000 more a year to put my boat in next door. And I just really just told the guy, look, just try to encourage him. Hang in there. You can do this. But boy, was I surprised when the following day, I don't know who he told, and John knows him, but I won't say his name. But he used to be a chief of police in town. And you'll have to go through history to figure out who I'm talking about now. I'm not going any farther than that. But he came over to me and he started telling me the same thing. He has this job that he does there. He's a very big shot in the club, and he has a job. And I'm going to have to safely say that probably every third word, is a bomb, And he just felt totally free to come up to me and just start talking to me like that. Just boom, 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 and I've had it with this place. I don't think I can take it anymore, and all of that. And I was honored that he would come to me and try to get encouraged. I was honored because that tells me that I'm doing something in such a way as that I'm not making people think, look, unless you talk my language, I don't want to talk to you. Unless you can have a great attitude, I don't want to talk to you. I was honored that he felt that he could come to me, and he's much older than I am, and he was seeking my advice. And it's just really honoring, and that's what all of us have to offer. When we offer holiness, we're offering acceptance because of what Jesus did on the cross, not because of anything that we do. And I'm going to continue on with this in the following week or two. But I just want to end with this thought also, that when we talk about what we have to offer as a church, you're going to start walking away with, well, we have a lot to offer. We do have a lot to offer. But all churches are different, not necessarily better or worse. They're just different. And we have to realize that. We have an agenda here, and it's great, and we're having a lot of fun doing it, and things are going to get accomplished. But if somebody wants to go somewhere else, I don't have a problem with that. Lynn and I love that, as long as they go somewhere else. It's when they don't want to go anywhere that I have a problem, But Paul said, the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. We're all on the same team. We're all trying to do the same job. And we should be glad that there are helpers that can help us in our community. So I just want to challenge all of us that when I go through these things of what we have to offer, if you yourself feel like you can't share that with somebody else, if you feel like when you invite somebody to church and they say to you, oh, I can't go to church because of my past or things I've done, then you need to be equipped to know what to say to them so that they can say, oh, okay, all right, maybe I'll give that a shot. Equip yourself to do that. I'm challenging you today. Don't just be an attendee. Be somebody who's equipped to help your neighbors and your friends and your coworkers. Amen.